This Archon quest really was a doozy. The longer I rewatch cutscenes, go through the quest over and over again, the crazier it becomes. Forget about the fact that Teyvat could be in a Samsara, but this is all about us. Our confrontation with the Sustainer of Heavenly Principles happens after this takes place. So what happens in this moment 500 years into the future affects our first confrontation with the Sustainer of Heavenly Principles when the game first starts. This whole thing is just crazy. Recreating Khaenri'ah? Recreating even ley lines? Let's break it all down and go over everything. How they're recreating ley lines, Khaenri'ah, and what the Shade's intentions are. Because from the very beginning, they've been contriving this whole thing. And the Shades made damn sure that the Savior never showed up to Khaenri'ah through space and time. So let's go over it. And let's start with how our Abyss sibling even creates an atlas for Khaenri'ah to begin with. Essentially, the Abyss twin used the Loom of Fate to remake the ley lines of Khaenri'ah. That is essentially what they've been doing this entire time, all these years we've been playing this game. But it was only possible to do this in Natlan because of the Night Kingdom and their different ley lines. We learned in Sumeru that Irminsul takes records of all memories and things that happen in Teyvat. Again, Teyvat is basically like a giant computer database. I just finished Skirk's story quest a few hours ago, and that story quest just confirms what I've been saying for years now. Everyone's fate is in the sky, the fake stars in the false sky. Quite literally, their fates are sealed within this sky, and the stars, their constellations. That's why all playable characters, you can make up their constellations through the waypoints, but the ley lines contain the memories of this world. And that is precisely why the Traveler can harness all the elements. They're not connected to this world and its program. This is obviously meant to be a bubble world, an ark, a safe haven, a prison, whatever you want to call it, or whatever you perceive it as. It's a world with a barrier that's protecting it or sealing it. In Sumeru's Archon quest, everyone's memory of Rukkhadevata was erased, and then later, the Balladeer. Irminsul itself is like the main central hard drive of Teyvat, while the skies in the Stella Fortuna are people's fates, predetermined. That's why people like Mona and her master can read them. And then all connecting through Irminsul, the ley lines spread throughout Teyvat. But obviously Natlan has a unique circumstance since their Pyro Dragon burned their ley lines and damaged them. That is why the Abyss Order was in Natlan to begin with, for two reasons. One, all the members of the Abyss Order, the original citizens from Khaenri'ah, they all went into deep meditation to try to remember what Khaenri'ah was like 500 years ago, supply it with memories, in order to create an atlas for the base of a new Khaenri'ah, a new blueprint. But 500 years is a hell of a long time to remember every little detail, especially people that are now corrupted, lost most of their humanity, and exposed heavily to the abyss. I can barely remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, let alone 500 years ago. But that's exactly why they had a second plan in mind. They wanted to lure and bait out Dainsleif, because Dainsleif has a special ring given to him by his brother, which is a direct reference to the Ring of Nibelung. Dainsleif, unlike the other Khaenri'ahns cursed with immortality, is able to keep his body intact. And out of any Khaenri'ah living with immortality, he has the best memory of their homeland, so he is the perfect person to absorb memories from to create a one-for-one copy of the original Khaenri'ah in its full glory. And that is exactly what they do. But the Night Kingdom, however, cannot create additional ley lines. We learned this in Natlan's story quest. The Lord of Night is only able to repair Natlan's damaged ley lines. But that is why our Abyss twin was talking with the Lord of Night. They essentially activated the Loom of Fate, projecting the memories of Khaenri'ah, which overlapped with Natlan. That's why Seat Lolly, somebody that's trained and has experience reading the ley lines in the Night Kingdom, was able to sense something, but it wasn't dangerous, but it was there, it was noticeable. And that's why our paths were even able to cross with Direidyth. That's why she's able to see us, we're able to see her, but not the monsters that she sees, and she can't see the monsters that we do. Two different space-times are now converging temporarily, while our Abyss sibling activates the Loom of Fate, projecting Khaenri'ah, trying to create their atlas. Creating their atlas and reweaving new ley lines for the new Khaenri'ah they'll eventually plant. This is something even the Lord of Night is intrigued by. Wow, you can recreate ley lines of a lost civilization. So the Lord of Night allows our Abyss sibling to do their work. They're intrigued, but the Lord of Night has their own condition. So obviously they want something from this, which begs the question, maybe we will see the captain return, because the Lord of Night brings up an interesting detail. The captain and Mavwika during the Archon quest had different ways to save Natlan. Mavwika was unwilling to sacrifice the memory of Natlan because then Natlan would no longer be Natlan. Natlan is, at the end of the day, its memories. Without its memories, the nation is no longer what it is. That's a big theme in the story quest in Teyvat as a whole, but the captain says that sacrificing those memories to save the ley lines is what's necessary for survival. What our Abyss sibling is trying to do kind of solves both problems at once, so the Lord of Night is intrigued. And that is essentially what they do in Natlan and why we're able to meet Direidyth. But there's something else at play here. Helping to create an atlas isn't enough to transport a spaceship key across time and space. No. That requires the intervention of a shade, or multiple shades. And it actually didn't dawn on me right away, but the entire name of this story quest as Space and Time for You. Not just time, not just space. And it's heavily speculated that the sustainer of heavenly principles is the shade of space. We don't know this for certain, but it certainly seems like it, and they were spying on us at the end of the quest. They saw what we were up to, and our Abyss sibling, which directly dictated the very beginning of the game. The arrogation of mankind ends now. But something that's bothered me for years is, why on earth didn't they just ice us right then and there? They stopped us from leaving Teyvat, which makes sense. You're trying to keep this bubble world, this false sky, a secret. Last time a powerful being left and came back, they brought the Abyss. That was Nibelung. So keeping us here makes sense for that reason alone, but why not kill us? Why keep us here and why orchestrate all of this? Well, it actually makes a lot of sense for a few different reasons. But first, we have to understand what actually happens here, because what's taking place here is taking place in a very strange plane here. An intersection of memories, as our Abyss sibling calls it, through time and space, creating a paradox with this space key. To put it simply, the twins come to Teyvat in their spaceships, but our Abyss sibling wakes up first. They lose most of their memories, including us, but they were not just coincidentally crash landing here, they were summoned by Khaenri'ah. We've known for a long time now Khaenri'ah summons descenders and outworldly beings to help defy this world. This is just reinforced by Skirk's story quest, getting to know more about Surta Logi. And through Dainsleif's own conversation with his former master Hayden, Khaenri'ah had very corrupt higher-ups like the Vinster King and the Elders. And Khaenri'ah as a whole acts like a Trojan horse within Teyvat to begin with. Again, I really do speculate that Khaenri'ahns are descendants from the second who came that fell in love with the first angel. Why on earth would they give this description from this outlander voyager to have star-shaped pupils, and that is the one defining trait all pure-blooded Khaenri'ahns have. But regardless, our Abyss sibling is here now and is the Prince of Khaenri'ah, lives there for a while, grows attached to the people there, serves as their prince but also their savior. This is something the Vinster King contrived, turning our Abyss sibling into this big savior monarch. But the reckoning is inevitable, the doomsday that's coming, which is the cataclysm. It's prophesied that nothing can stop it, it's inevitable. This is where the manipulations of the shades come into play, but it's also manipulating our Abyss sibling's own actions. It's a very fascinating circumstance we find ourselves in. Direidyth is just a humble Khaenri'ahn living with her grandmother that has hope, even though she sorta suspects they're living within a false sky. Just like we learned in Skirk's own story quest, it doesn't matter where humans come from, which planet. They all yearn to find something more, explore what's beyond their own world. It's just human nature. So she sets out to find the savior but finds us, because while she set out from Khaenri'ah, that's when, in current time, our Abyss sibling activates the Loom of Fate in the Night Kingdom, now transporting Direidyth to us in current day Natlan. We have our small journey with her, get to know her, get to talk to her, but in her own mind she's from 500 years ago and still thinks she's in that time. Until the very end of the story quest, she offers to give us a memento so that she can relay the message to our Abyss sibling. Our entire journey this whole time, as the main MC, is to find our sibling and rekindle with them. Figure out what the hell's been going on. So then when space and time converge in this moment, Direidyth then goes back in the past, gives the space key to our Abyss sibling, then they have to make a choice in that moment. The cataclysm's about to start, but we're the only family they have in the entire cosmos. 2 siblings from a lost kingdom somewhere on a remote planet we don't know. They haven't seen us in a long time, so they make the decision to come find us, but when they do and find our spaceship, our key is still with us. And our Abyss sibling still has theirs, now creating a paradox. There's 3 keys now. Then when our Abyss sibling goes back, it's too late. The cataclysm has already happened. Khaenri'ah has been wiped out. They failed as the savior and let the nation down. This has become a second home to them, so they live with this guilt and regret. After which they come find us and we try to leave, and that's the opening cutscene, but it actually goes much deeper than that. Because when current Abyss sibling shows up, they realize that this is the exact moment in time that caused them to miss the cataclysm. It was all contrived. But it only was allowed to happen because of them creating the Atlas. The moment they activated the Loom of Fate in Natlan in its Night Kingdom is what brought Direidyth here to begin with, creating this time and space phenomenon, this paradox, because the moment they activated the Loom of Fate in current game, this is what directly sealed the fate of them never showing up in the past. The Abyss siblings spent 500 years wondering what the hell, but in that phenomenal moment where our Abyss sibling, us, and Direidyth are all in the same place, they realize. That's when they say, "You're mocking me, Istaroth," and the Sustainer of Heavenly Principles is watching. Why this is a big deal is because it essentially means that the Shades all but confirmed and reassured that our Abyss sibling would never show up to Khaenri'ah no matter what. If we give our key to Direidyth, she's going to then give it to our Abyss sibling in the past, persuading them to come find us and missing the cataclysm. But if we don't give our key, our Abyss sibling will leave theirs, because not leaving their key could create bigger problems. If you tamper too much with space and time, it can have untold consequences. This is now destiny fated to happen, through the manipulation of 2 shades. And regardless, this all had to happen for the Atlas to be created, for the blueprint of the new Khaenri'ah to be established. The only thing left to do now is plant the seed, so the roots might take place. But where on earth do you do that? That is essentially what's left now, to plant the new ley line somewhere. To put it simply, Direidyth would not have been able to meet us without our sibling activating the Loom of Fate, creating the Atlas for new Khaenri'ah. But they would have never created the new Khaenri'ah and activated the Loom of Fate if we never met Direidyth. But we would have never met Direidyth if they never activated the Loom of Fate in the Night Kingdom. And yet again, they would have never been able to do that if we never met Direidyth. You see what I'm saying? This is where the paradox comes into play. This is where I picture Venti somewhere drunk, laughing. I will always believe he is the new iteration of Istaroth until proven otherwise. If we choose to give her our space key, then she'll be a hilly troll 500 years later and we'll get it back, starting this whole thing over. Even if we choose not to give our space key to her, our Abyss sibling will leave theirs, refusing the opportunity to meet us like this once again. The only thing I wasn't truly certain of is how did she get the key and keep it as a hilly troll if we give it to her, because she goes back 500 years into the past and gives it to our Abyss sibling before the cataclysm. So how would she have it in that cave 500 years later? I'm assuming this is part of the paradox that Istaroth contrives. And more than likely, our Abyss sibling puts it back in that cave or gives it back to her. Similarly how they do it if we choose not to give it to her. Because no matter which way you choose, the end result is the same. Again, it's no different than the sacred Sakura in Inazuma. The sacred Sakura was planted and helped protect Inazuma during the cataclysm against the monsters and the abyssal corruption. Without the sacred Sakura, Inazuma might have been doomed. But the sacred Sakura was planted in the future. We were there during Raiden A's second story quest, again through Istaroth, the god of time. The sacred Sakura being planted in the future to help them in the past during the cataclysm. It's the same sort of thing, and it opens up a whole can of worms for what could be going on in the bigger picture of Teyvat. And as the Sustainer of Heavenly Principles listens in on us, directly after this meeting is when Direidyth is going to go to our Abyss sibling and then after wake us up. So directly after this meeting is when the opening cutscene is going to take place. It's just a mind-blowing concept that this sustainer of heavenly principles listened in on a conversation taking place 500 years into the future, knowing full well what's going to happen in the future, recreating Khaenri'ah and its atlas, but yet, they don't kill us. If anything, it seems like they wanted to split us up through time and space. But it begs the question as to why. Why on earth is this all happening, and why would the Shades do this? One option could be that they're just doing their duty. Like Renova says, you do not want to defy the heavenly principles and overstep your authority. Even if the angels have been punished, over the years been banished, to live as Seelies and empty husks, without their mortal forms, at the end of the day they live to serve the heavenly principles, despite being reluctant to do so. This could just be the will of the heavenly principles to contain two descenders, through time and space 500 years apart. If we are living in a Samsara, it makes sense for a whole bunch of reasons, and splitting our siblings up just makes sense. But perhaps the Abyss siblings are part of the Samsara or what make it possible. Maybe in order to have a true Samsara in Teyvat, the Abyss siblings have to be left alive, to roam and go about their journeys, keep repeating the same things over and over. There is a ton of evidence to suggest that this is all a Samsara, and that we've been on this journey before. And because everyone's memories and their fates are coded through the skies, the stars, and the ley lines, the roadmap is always there laid out for you each time the Samsara restarts. Kinda like the Simulanka simulation that we played through that event quest, but on a bigger scale. Kinda like foreshadowing everything.
Ah, Traveler, we meet again. What? You don't remember me? Well, allow me to join you on your quest once again.
In the perpetual meantime of a sheltered eternity, most are content to live and not to dream. But in the hidden corners where the gods' gaze does not fall, there are those who dream of dreaming. My memory has all but faded completely, but I will always remember how much she too loved these flowers.
The prophecy. Yes, what has been prophesied will be fulfilled. You may view such things as the history of the future. People call such things fate, and it is written in the stars. It cannot so easily be altered, just as prophecies are usually only the future as seen from the perspectives of the gods. Could things be happening in hidden corners where the gods' gaze does not fall? Are the things that you shall see different from the fate that the gods perceive?
Everything in this world runs in a loop. This cycle is called a samsara. You, me, and everyone else are all stuck inside the one-day samsara. As for the truth, that's on you to find out. If you were told the truth instead of discovering it yourselves, it would literally blow your minds. I don't know how you'd be after that.
And really, if you look at Teyvat and its history, it makes sense as well. Teyvat itself is Hebrew for ark. This is an ark world, meant to be hidden from the outside threats. If we can take away anything from Skirk's own story quest, which I'm going to talk about in my next video, it's that there's a lot of threatening things out there. Not just gods and powerful beings, but just people. Pirates, bandits, merchants. The first wave of humanity, the original civilizations, lived under a very benevolent primordial one and a very happy-go-lucky Celestia with its angels, but they were forced to live ignorant lives. No matter where humans come from, they're gonna yearn for more. This angered the heavenly principles, and allowing them to live with the dragons had consequences. The dragons were still free to leave in their spaceships and explore, but the War of Vengeance nearly destroyed Teyvat and brought the Abyss here. This is where the second batch of humanity lived much stricter under the Seven, forcing the most powerful deities in Teyvat to fight over the Seven Gnosis, becoming one of the Seven, to rule in Celestia's name. If benevolence didn't work, we'll rule with an iron fist. The Archons will even learn to fear me, and they will do as I wish. Humans will remain ignorant to the outside and the threats, because it's for their own good. Then the Cataclysm strikes. Khaenri'ah, this Trojan horse nation, outside of the coding of Teyvat, summoning outside help, technology, descenders, you name it. And that is the final straw. If you're the heavenly principles and you've failed twice now with humanity in keeping Teyvat safe, keeping human arrogation at bay and under control. Even the heavenly principles cannot be immune to the abyss. They're probably weakened from having to fight it twice. What's the third logical step for humanity? Both attempts did not work. Creating this Samsara now for 500 years, and trapping our abyss siblings within it. Being able to manipulate time and space, being able to see events into the future with the shade of time, but also being able to transport different things with the shade of space. Defying space and time, creating the Samsara paradox, where humans now have no choice but to remain stagnant, no matter what, indefinitely. Plus, now, you can contain two descenders, and they're stuck. Separating them like they did at the beginning of the game, having them go about their journey with no memories, having to regain everything, and the cycle continues. Having the Abyss siblings actually be a part of the cycle itself is genius as well. Having their own future actions dictate what they do in the past. It's brilliant. If Teyvat is trapped in a 500-year Samsara, then human arrogation is kept stagnant. There's only so much you can do, as far as the Heavenly Principles knows, because I actually think the Fatui Harbingers are aware. They are in a Samsara. I think Iltadore's conversation with Nahida, Scaramucci's comments about the false sky and this hoax goes way deeper than just the sky's fake. There's worlds out there. I mean, Khaenri'ah has been exploring outside Teyvat for years, long before the Cataclysm. That's no secret, that's no surprise. Piero would not be surprised by that. I think learning you're in a 500-year Samsara after the Cataclysm is way crazier to try to break out. Hence what the Fatui Harbingers are doing. If you look at Iltadore and what he was doing in Sumeru, it just adds more merit to it. He was already exploring with Samsaras just through the festival there during the Archon quest. If they are in a Samsara, he knows they are. They are trying to break the Samsara, humans' current imprisonment within this arc. In the original Teyvat trailer, Dainsleif calls it a sheltered eternity. It's stagnant. 500-year sheltered eternity. Teyvat was always supposed to be a shelter, an ark, but because of the failed first two attempts of humanity's salvation here, they are now trapped in a sheltered eternity. It's like Dainsleif says as well in the same trailer. There are those that are content with just living, but there are those that dream of dreaming. People like Skirk, us, Direidyth. They dream of what's outside, Skirk's master. And there are people that will break out of the Samsara, kinda like we did in Sumeru but on a bigger scale. The Samsara itself could just be the Heavenly Principles needing to bide their time for whatever comes next, while our Abyss sibling tries to break free of it. For all we know, recreating Khaenri'ah with this Atlas could just restart the entire process. Unknowingly, it could be exactly what this Samsara needs, because once we reach the end of the journey in Khaenri'ah, we're actually reaching the beginning of the story again, the last 500 years, and then it repeats. The Sustainer of Heavenly Principles was watching us, and the end of the game is the beginning of the game all over again, but only this time it's going to be different. Clearly, that's the entire point of this story. That's one possible explanation. The other is that the angels and the shades themselves are betraying the Heavenly Principles under their own nose. Even Renova defied her own authority to help humanity, help the first Pyro Archon. The angels themselves have been left in the dark, and also have been segregated to this world. If humans in Teyvat are the inmates, then the angels are the jail wardens, but they're also confined to the prison as well, and even they are not immune to punishment. The angels themselves hold humanity very dear to them because they were created to guide them and love them. During Nibelung's return, when the celestial nails were cast, this was to eradicate humanity for a necessary evil. Teyvat had already been plagued by the Abyss at this point. It's basically like having to cut off one arm to save the rest of your body from disease or corruption. But Istaroth herself went to Enkanomiya to help the in their pleas. For the Heavenly Principles, it seems very apparent that their priorities are to keep Teyvat safe from the outside. If they have to eradicate humanity and start again, it's a necessary evil. And I'll be honest, there's definitely some merit as to why they do this. They are not an evil being, but the angels have more empathy for the humans here in life here. I could totally see them now getting fed up with the Heavenly Principles. Their attempts have failed. The Age of the Seven failed, the original civilizations have failed, their treatment of the dragons failed, And now the angels and shades have found somebody else. Somebody that could possibly lead Teyvat the right way into the future. Skirk's entire story quest kind of paints this picture. Humans have to evolve. Despite the threats that are out there, the dangers. Eventually, living ignorant lives isn't going to be enough. The false stars are going to fall from the sky. Existing in the cosmos with love and empathy is the entire theme of Skirk's entire story quest. This entire game is trying to paint the Traveler as the person that's going to succeed the heavenly principles. The Shade of Time and Space could be contriving this all along. Ranova herself was reluctant to curse Khaenri'ahns with immortality. And we know that the Moon Sisters had tons of empathy for humanity as well. Most angels did. The Shade of Space and Time could be housing us within the Samsara, almost concealing us in secret, having us go about our missions, go about our journeys, all meant to fool the heavenly principles, preventing our Abyss sibling from going to be the savior in Khaenri'ah so they did not die in the battle, allowing them to live on, join the Abyss Order, and recreate Khaenri'ah in its own glory. It is a direct result from these two shades that our Abyss sibling is going to recreate Khaenri'ah, and this new Khaenri'ah and its Atlas is going to more than likely be the chapter that we play once we reach the Khaenri'ah chapter. You know, I always wondered what the Khaenri'ah chapter would be like. Is it going back in the past? Recreating it? Is it just going to the ruined Khaenri'ah in its current state? Wherever the Traveler decides to plant the new ley lines of the new Khaenri'ah, that is going to be the Khaenri'ah chapter, and that is a direct result of Istaroth and the Sustainer of Heavenly Principles. Why on earth would they do this unless they had ulterior motives? It would not be a stretch to say that they see us as the future leader of Teyvat, somebody to succeed the Heavenly Principles, and I agree. It does seem to me like this is where the story is going at the endgame. And once that happens, Teyvat's borders can be open for all. They can find a way to exist in the universe despite the threats, allow humanity to evolve naturally along with the dragons, and everyone coexisting without fear of punishment or divine wrath, no longer having human arrogation holding humans back. I'm sure you all have your own possible theories as to why these two shades would allow this all to happen, this paradox. Why they would prevent our Abyss sibling from being able to save Khaenri'ah. Maybe they would have died in that battle so they saved their life unknowingly, but it's just absolutely fascinating to me that they were able to manipulate future events to outright cause what happened in the past, leading to the beginning of the game. But I want to know your thoughts. Do you think Teyvat is in a Samsara? Do you think it's just a straight linear story? What does Dainsleif mean by a sheltered eternity here? And what exactly are the Shades' intentions? Are their interests still aligned with the Heavenly Principles, or are they biding their time? Are they actually planning to betray the Heavenly Principles in their failed attempts at Teyvat? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I also just wanted to say real quick, thank you so much for 50,000 subs. I'm going to be talking about Skirk's story quest next. I just wanted to get this off my chest because I've been thinking about this story quest a lot. And after that, I'm going to be doing my 50,000 subscribers special. So if you have any questions about me, the channel, my personal life, literally anything you want to ask me, by all means, I'm going to be answering every question I get, so ask away. Love you all. Thank you so much. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and as always, we will see you all in the next one. Later.